Thank you for inviting me in this very important ESG Forum for Family Business 2023. I sincerely acknowledge my gratitude to IAAS for making this event possible in good collaboration with Singapore Business Federation, with Singapore Management University, with Skills Future SG, and Lifelong Institute in Singapore. My topic, I will just share my PPTs. My topic is on evolving pathways in global agricultural advancement. And this is a very tough topic because there is so much evolving globally. In my presentation, I can just touch the tip of the iceberg to share with you some evolving challenges we have and how we need to tackle with them. I, I will not be going detail into each and every aspect of the evolving pathway. So before I move ahead, let me give a brief introduction to APAARI, to which I belong. Our aim is, in fact, strengthening agri-food research and innovation for sustainable agriculture development in the region of Asia and the Pacific. We are working on four thematic areas of natural resource management, risk mitigation, inclusive development, policy, and advocacy. All these thematic areas actually contribute in the topic of what I'm going to speak today, but I'm not going to give you examples of from APAARI, which I can briefly only touch upon. I will tell you of the global issues which are there, which we all are facing. Now, people talk a lot of food security, and we all know the issues, the number of people to be fed and all, which is increasingly becoming a big issue. But we don't talk much on undernourishment. So I'm just giving you a glimpse of undernourishment, which is one of the global priority we all need to address. And if you look at this map very briefly, we have a highest level of undernourishment in Africa at a global level, where the levels go from very minimum to up to 40%. You see the brown cluster, 11, sorry. And that is then followed by Asia, where the undernourishment level or prevalence in percentage goes from 7 to 10%. So this yeah, yeah. Are you able to see now? Full screen? Okay, thank you. So undernourishment is one of the major global issue which we all are facing now. Now, if you look at the challenges in agriculture and environment, that is a direct effect on public health, what I start with. We see that the overarching issue is of the climate change, and followed by the land degradation, which has become a very big problem, and the biosecurity issues, the invasive species, the transboundary pests are really threatening a lot of agriculture commodities or crops with new pests and pathogens, the exotic issues which are coming from different regions into a country. Biodiversity loss, I'll deal a bit. This is more attenuated by the impact of climate change. And the evolving priority, I think, is that we need to think of not to become production centric with staple crops and all. And we need to have a proper market access and linkages and make sure that we move ahead with a good agribusiness, but following a good agroecological pathway. Now, if you look at the greenhouse gas emissions by economic sector, you will see quite clearly that agriculture which is affected by climate change, is unfortunately also contributing about 25% to the emission of methane, nitrous oxide, and all towards climate change. Then there are many other factors which emissions from many other sectors which affect the climate change. Climate change, I think, is overarching, and we all are very much familiar and we all understand the threat of it. And if we look at this scenario with the extreme weather or the sea level rise and agriculture productivity loss with increasing temperature, humidity, and all, we see that the most affected region, which ranks in the first two or three in climate change, are Asia and Africa. You will see them in dark brown and red color. We are in a very danger zone in Asia and Africa. And if you see the ranking from 1 to 169 is the light yellow color you see on this global map. We are the most threatened region in the world, all the countries where we all live. So this has become an overarching major global problem now. Now, we need to have our priorities for environmental protection. This we need to prevent the unwanted changes to ecosystem and their constituent parts. We'll see that 50 years with the increasing intensity of industrial activity, lot of globalization and industrialization in most of the countries, we had lot of issues to the environment, as I mentioned, also with the climate change. And then there came a lot of legislations on as transnational and national regulations and guidelines which came up to save our water, soil, air, and biomass. So here the problem is environmental protection laws which have come up. They not only relate to the polluter but also to government, national institutions, and individuals. The issues of the environmental protection, the major one is climate change. I briefly touched upon, and that is followed by the global warming, which we all know, the burning of fossil fuels, emission from automobiles, and chlorofluorocarbons. They all add to the greenhouse gases. Then air pollution. Air pollution is a very big issue in some of the countries, if not all, because air pollution actually comes from our burning of waste, cities, stubble burning in agriculture, and improper filtration of industrial fumes, which cause very poor quality of air in cities. Then the worrying issue is the ozone layer depletion. But here, ozone layer is very important, as we all know. But here we have some success story or some good news. After the Montreal Protocol, this is being tackled at the global level. I will come to that. Then the water pollution is another issue. Water in rivers, ocean, lake, and ponds, they change completely the physical, chemical, and biological conditions of the water. This polluted water lacks oxygen, and therefore it is a big threat to the life of the human beings and the microorganisms which depend upon it. I was talking about the impact of environmental pollution. Look at 6.5 million people die every year because of air pollution only. It is quite a huge number. Then about zero point 0.5 to 2 million people die every year with water pollution, occupational exposure, and lead pollution. So this is a trend which we all are seeing in the evolving global priorities, what we need to tackle. And if you look at the challenges in protecting environment, challenges are at different levels. We cannot meet the challenges just at one level. There has to be human actions in terms of land conversion, food production, household, domestic, industry, and all. Then there is a first order environmental challenges which we call impact on the biodiversity through species distribution, simpler ecosystem, land coverage, then carbon cycle change, water cycle change, nitrogen cycle change, and other geochemical cycles. There's a second order environmental consequences on groundwater depletion, which we know quite well in South Asia, especially water pollution, air pollution, soil erosion, and so on. Then there's a human development impact, food security, health, human displacement, conflict. You will see there is a complexity of things coming up globally. And we just need to gauge it carefully and we need to do our best at whatever level, whatever we can do. If you see the effect from air pollution alone, which I told you is more than 6.5 million deaths per year, you will see both the severity and the magnitude. The severity is ultimately the death of human beings. And the magnitude is like there's a high level, millions of people suffering with lung infections, with respiratory system. And there are thousands of people who have doctors visit because of their uh, kind of a lung infection. Then you see the heart attacks is becoming common. And many of them, in fact, die if you look at the severity of the whole impact. Now, water pollution. Water pollution is something we often neglect. This we need water for urban and domestic use. We need for ecosystem health. We need for industrial productivity. We need for agricultural productivity. We need for social value and tourism. If you look at urban and domestic use, there's an increased water treatment and inspection cost. There's a maintenance cost. A lot of things are happening. In case of human health, we have seen polluted water is the world's largest health risk and continues to threaten both quality of life and public health. Social value and tourism, there's a prohibition from recreational use. You need good water, fresh water for the swimming pool, for fishing, for seafood gathering, for beach closures, for impacts on aesthetics, cultural and spiritual values, and so on. Then, in terms of ecosystem health, there's a damage to freshwater and marine ecosystem where the whole fishery world lives that kills fishes, invertebrates, and benthic fauna, flora, habitat degradation, and so on, and eventually it affects the ecosystem. There's a serious effect on industrial productivity when there's an exclusion of contaminated water for industrial use. This results in increasing water scarcity. Agriculture productivity, we all being in the field of agriculture, at least I am in the field of agriculture, there's an exclusion of contaminated water for irrigation results in this increasing water scarcity. Irrigation with contaminated water causes damage to and reduced productivity of pasture and crops. And also it gives soil contamination, it gives contamination, chemical residues in the crop that is raised. We have some instruments to protect the environment, but I'm not going to deal with that because it ranges from regulatory, economic, voluntary to education and information. However, if you look only at the impact of education and information, I think now maximum work is being done looking at some important SDGs which are being affected is on the agrobiodiversity. Agrobiodiversity is so crucial for the survival of the species, including human beings, and for getting the fresh oxygen for us to survive on the planet. Now, some focus is coming on resilient livelihood, on healthy diets and nutrition, sustainable land use, agriculture, and forestry. And this is making agroforestry a very important subject. Then climate change adaptation is going on quite well, and biodiversity conservation, there are a lot of global efforts. There's a great biodiversity loss if we neglect the environment, and this is quite clear from my preceding points which I made. Now, efforts in this direction globally is evolving towards nature positive solution. This initiative actually aims to reimagine, co-create, and implement nature positive solutions based on agri-food system that equitably support local food and livelihood while simultaneously ensuring that agriculture is a net positive contributor to nature. This is slightly now in vogue, and people are trying to resort to it. And that approach which is being followed is of agroecology, where you use minimum of the chemicals, where you look at the local resources, we look at the soil health with the local organic material, and we try to see that we have the proper use of the wastage, which all helps in maintaining the ecological balance. There are a lot of global initiatives. I'm not going to read on that. There are conservancy goals, and there are UN environmental programs which are listed here to conserve, like either the emissions or the in the oceans, or conserve rivers or support the local rivers. The UN Environment Program is actually working a lot. They transition to low carbon and resource efficient economies and on environmental governance, law, and safeguarding the ecosystem. Climate change mitigation, we have some big global programs by USAID, by World Bank, by CGIAR, by ACIAR, by European Union, and also on the water management, especially in the South African Development Community and the Mekong region of the Southeast Asia from GIZ, the German agency. These global efforts are examples of how much we are worried and how much we need to be careful. I was telling you about the ozone depletion. There is a success story. The Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer, it was developed in 1980s. Today, this Montreal Protocol, I must say very strongly, is the only UN environmental agreement to have been ratified by each and every country in the world. And it has made progress to a level that 99% of ozone depleting substances controlled by Montreal Protocol have been phased out, and the ozone layer is slowly healing. This is a great success story we all should be proud of, and I think there are things like that that we need to work collectively in this evolving priorities at the global level. So there are cross-cutting issues, but the issue is basically the low profile of agriculture and environment ministries in the countries, in the developing countries especially, and there's not enough fund or revenues to really meet all the challenges which I just presented. In achieving the global priorities, I think we need to see, we don't need to rush into any technology. We need to look at the need-based technologies of artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, biotechnology, where uh, genome, gene editing is becoming very popular, and the use of nanotechnology as sensors and all have become very crucial. But when you talk of global priorities, the actual solution lies at the national level. We can't work globally, every one of us. So eventually you work locally, you work national level. So we need to understand the national priorities and challenges very well. We need to cultivate a culture of co-learning and co-creation of knowledge, involving even the smallest denominators like farmers, farming community, and SMEs and all, to see how we have a bottom-up approach to really go for innovation. And we have to respect the local traditional knowledge and capabilities, which are very crucial, especially when we follow the agroecological approach. And we need to promote innovations at national level, and especially have us, a lot of us are talking about innovations, but many countries we are still not having a agriculture innovation ecosystem platform, which is very crucial. International organizations have a big role to play. There are United Organization uh, organizations. There are other global agencies which are working like USDA or Swiss Agency or British or ACIR, Rockefeller, GIZ, some development banks. There are research institutions. There are regional networks like FARA in Africa, APAARI in Asia, CACARI in Central and Caucasian region, and so on. There are institutions like Mekong Institute in Southeast Asia. I think all of them are contributing directly or indirectly, financially or technically, to really meet the challenges. But the effort which is being done needs to be accelerated. What we need is to scale up the partnership. Partnership is very, very crucial to scale up. And we need to scale up partnership among international organizations to work at a national level to have an impact at the local level. And here I give you an example of EU cooperation and partnership, many international organizations. We all know about G7, their role. We know about G20, which had a meeting recently. We know about the UN Sustainable Development Goals. We know about the FAO. We know about the OECD. These organizations have to work with each other also, and we need to really scale up partnerships at international, regional, and national level to meet the challenges. So way forward is a very sound collaboration, interagency collaboration. And as I mentioned before, agroecological approach where we minimize the impact on the planet, on the environment, on agriculture of the various harmful substances, emissions and all, and work towards agri-food system transformation, which should be inclusive, covering the environment so that we can really meet the food security challenges. I think I have finished my time of 20 minutes. I stop here. Thank you, one and all.